Let's see your little telecom.
Are we done yet?
There you go.
Good evening, this is the special board meeting of the Sewer Authority Midcoastside for Monday, July 18th, 2016. I'll stand for Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Could we have a roll call, please?
I'm sorry?
Is somebody available to do roll call?
Oh, I can. I didn't ask staff to stay because I figured it's gonna be short open session. So, Chair Reddick,
Here.
Vice Chair Slater Carter,
Present.
Secretary Treasurer Warren,
Here.
just checking, Director Lohman,
Here.
Director Kowalczyk,
Here.
Director Boyd.
Here.
Wonderful. Item number 2 is public comment. Is there anyone here who would like to comment on business that's not on the SAM agenda?
Just for the record, there will be a LAFCO meeting on Wednesday. At, what time is it? 2:30?
2:30.
It's like the last item on the agenda, isn't it?
And they will be discussing the grand jury report,
Okay.
so it may be of interest.
So, can I go and tell them the emperor has no clothes?
Please, you are an agent of your district. You're not my agent.
Yeah, but I have to start out telling them I'm not speaking for the district because they agendized this before we had a chance to have a board meeting to discuss it.
Okay, well that's fine. I just wanted folks to know.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you for that, Catherine. Seeing no other persons here wishing to comment, I'll move to item number 3, new business. And there's 2 new business items. The first is item 3A, authorized contract with Roush Communication Consultants, Inc. to develop Sewer Authority Midcoastside strategic plan in an amount not to exceed $10,000.
So, as part of the budget process, the board identified that it would be beneficial to SAM to develop a strategic plan. And the recommendation was for me to talk with Roush because they had recently completed a strategic plan here on the coast side for MWSD, and they have a very good reputation. And I know them from their work and their connections with CSDA, the California Special District Association. So I did reach out to them. And Mr. Roush is available. He is interested. He thought that was a good idea, especially since SAM has these partnerships. And so I asked him to prepare a scope of service, which is attached for you. This would be a little bit different than, based on his recommendation, would be a little bit different than if you were doing such as MWSD, because you might reach out more to the general public, being that they are the constituents directly, whereas with SAM, you know, we sort of filter through the member agencies. We don't generally have a lot of contact on a policy level with the direct users. We really have them with the member agencies, and so that might be more of the focus as opposed to the public. But certainly he would be open to doing that, but it wasn't envisioned in the scope of service. But certainly if that came out of the strategic planning process, we could put more of those type of discussions in the scope of service. However, the assumption is that at least some of this would be in recorded or in a public venue, and then the other, of course, would be a board workshop, which of course is a public meeting. And then it would be really based on the direction of the board as we're going through the process if we wanted to expand that. But based on that sort of limited scope of service and his understanding of what the issues might be or what the needs might be of a JPA, this was his recommendation, and certainly it can be modified by the board going forward.
Excellent, thank you. Questions of staff or comments?
Yeah, comments. I don't know them personally, but I noted in their experience, as Beverly said, they did the strategic plan for CSDA, the Special District Association, and for Aqua. I'd be interested in some feedback from Montera, since they've been working with them. I haven't, so I'd be interested if they have comments on how well they liked the performance they got.
Speaking as an individual,
We didn't have a board meeting to decide whether or not we could represent the agency in our response to this.
that's right. I was very pleased, and you can, the reason I like Roush is because his strategic plan results in a very clear matrix with achievable goals. And so that you can, as you work towards them, you can make sure you got them done and keep track of them, and it makes it easier to do an update.
Bless you.
Ours was very inclusive, and we did it at a point in time where we were just ending the water moratorium and seeking direction from the community on where to go. And I think it worked out very well. There was one day that was a little long, where all 5 board members and Clemens were stuck in a room working on the master plan, but it came out quite, I'm very pleased with the product, and you can see it on our website.
That's a good question about that. What was the scope?
Scope.
Because the strategic plan, what was it? What were
We
the
were,
boundaries of that?
we were looking for future direction for the district as a whole. We didn't limit it to either water or sewer. And we were looking at it as setting, the purpose of it was to help set a direction for the district, because we had several choices. We could just stop at what we were doing. And we got direction from the community that they did not want consolidation, that the community did not want, did want us to look at recreation, and wanted us to continue improving the sewer and the water system.
It was interesting because we put a whole bunch of the things out there for, I mean, it wasn't like we were short on ideas what to do with the district. But we figured it was time for a good gut check. Put everything on the table. Here's the things that we're interested in doing. Here's things that people have said we should be doing. And especially the public participation portion of it, which is not what we're looking at here, but I'll get to why I think it's okay in this context. There was a lot of back and forth, a lot of discussion. One of the things I loved so much at the end of it was Roush took notes on each of the major idea areas and put them up on or all the way around the room, the big room, a lot of these things. And then the exercise at the end, after everybody who had been through everything, some of the sheets were topics that people in the audience had brought up, spoken to, tried to persuade people on. It was really fascinating at the end of it, the general direction of the agency. Everybody got 3 green stickers. You can go put them on anything you want. And you put 3 on one thing, or you spread them across the waters, whatever you want to do.
I didn't take any stickers because I'm not in your district.
Well, that's fine.
Thank you.
I appreciate that. That was thoughtful. But
It took 5.
it was really interesting. Some of the more critical items that had gotten sheets got no stickers, and the people who had brought those things forward were still in the room and put their stickers on things. And it was really beneficial for the talking it through and seeing what are we all willing to put our stickers on. And it gave us something where not only, well, we were allowed to get some benefit of the feedback from the public about ratifying some of the basic direction. Some of the comments were actually very nice. There were some really creative thoughts as well that was great to add in. Taking all of that, taking it through a process that was actually collaborative, a lot of open discussion that wound up in a constructive, landed on a very constructive thing, and then Roush pulled it all together into something that's very readable and captured it well. It could have been chaos, it could have been something that meandered, but it actually landed on a document. I was skeptical when we went to go do it. It was like, I had a pretty clear idea of what I wanted to achieve. I didn't need it all written down, but in the end, I like having it. It's something we can point to, walk people through, and it provides a good starting point if somebody wants to talk about you know, I've got an idea and it's not in your plan.
What did it cost?
I think ours was 15.
Yeah. The other thing that it was very useful was to help guide and direct the general manager so that he has a framework on which to make his decisions and his recommendations. And I think that's very, very important. I think that was probably one of the most important things that came out of it, as well as for the staff. Again, for the board and for the direction we want to take the community, it was very useful. It was like a tiller. And for the, to use the sailing metaphors, for the general manager, it was more like a rudder. Or not a rudder, it would, yeah, whatever it is.
Thing in the back.
The thing that goes down and
Oh, it
the
keeps it
board, the board.
The keel.
The keel. Yeah, it's a keel. It keeps him going in a direction.
Keeps you on an even keel.
Yes, keeps us on an even keel, very good. And the board can move the rudder around here and there, but the manager knows, depending on which way the board is moving things, that that's his direction.
So end result would be, so I just want to compare, so in the city, we did a strategic plan, we ended up with consensus around priority areas where we will, are things, the areas where we're going to focus on. So when we make decisions going forward, we check back and say, oh, does that protect the environment? Does that fuel the economic interests of the city? You know, what are these 4 or 5 different things? And so it allows us to steer in the direction of the strategy.
Right.
So something like that.
Mhm.
Okay. So I have an observation that I think the scope in the proposal, thank you very much.
This is the private one, it's not the public
Oh,
one.
perfect. I think the scope in the proposal is probably not correct.
Oh.
I love the idea of doing a strategic plan. I love the idea if we have a plan that focuses us in a direction of, gives us a better tool to make decisions, so that we show up at meetings and we say, oh, this is aligned with item number 3 of the strategic plan. And I go, oh, okay, we all want that. And so it's a helpful guiding element. But I'll just pull it up here real quick.
What page is the scope on?
Well, maybe just a second.
There's a
Might
lot
wanna
of
start on
it.
page 2. I also had
Yeah.
some questions about
Yeah.
page 2.
So page 2, there's 2 bullet points on page 2.
What PDF page?
So,
Page 2.
He's
So-
got the PDF. so-
project understanding and deliverables. It
It
refers,
refers to-
just 2 bullet points. One refers to resolving the meaning of the word project in our JPA. And the second one is agreed upon maintenance levels and the balance of reliability, conformance, and regulations. I see the first one as being a legal thing, the second one being a engineering thing, and I'm not sure that's the right scope for a strategic plan for SAM. I think those are issues for SAM, for sure, absolutely. But I don't know that that's, I don't wanna set up an outside facilitator to fail. I think that would be a pretty difficult task to get through, since we have not been able to get any traction in the first bullet, and I think the second bullet is sort of an engineering thing. But I would hear other comments as well.
I'd like to just reinforce that. It seems to me that those are issues that we might want to identify as goals for the current year or the following year, but not to be
You mean these
resolved.
bullets?
Sorry?
You mean these bullets, the 2 bullets?
The 2 bullets, yes.
Yeah.
I agree with Rick that they seem inappropriate for a $9,000
Well, but
strategic planning session. I can see where a strategic plan might identify those as issues to be resolved in the future. Because I think we want to identify not only sort of opportunities and, he talks about opportunities and challenges. I think we also want to look at, threats to the process and constraints that might affect the strategic planning process. And I certainly think the issue of the JPA interpretation is one, and certainly service level is another, but I can see those taking a long time to resolve, and basically outside this budget, and outside a typical strategic planning format. So I'm just saying I agree with Rick. on those items there.
But one of the things about what we did was we didn't solve any problems. What we did was we set out areas of interest, put things out there to see where the priorities were, both ours and the communities, and the manager as well. Everybody got to weigh in. It allowed us to decide, and kind of put a weight on things, but it wasn't, we didn't spend time trying to solve it.
Well, that's
Well,
fine, it should not be in the scope of work.
But if I could add that
Yeah.
what he says below the bullets is these are merely examples of potential issues. So we have every opportunity to say we don't want to touch on these issues. And as you note later, he says opportunity and challenges will arise and be dealt with during that. But I think these are issues that he has heard and he put in as just examples, not as what we were going to
Well,
tackle.
that would be something that
And-
the general manager would want to clarify with the consultant, that the intent is not to solve those problems through the strategic planning process, but to incorporate them as issues to, be subsequently addressed, issues affecting the operations and the direction of SAM.
So hopefully we can speak to our interests and what it is we're trying to accomplish, and put a little less emphasis on the proposed means of achieving those things, because then we can start to figure out, how many different ways do we have to address those, rather than argue about, I want X, no, I don't want X, so.
Well, and just to explain where I think this came from is when he and I were talking about, sort of what my understanding of what the board may be looking for, and he asked me what are some of the issues that have come up. And so since we had just finished the budget process and we were talking about things like developing an infrastructure plan and and some of the discussions that have come up, these were the two that just immediately came to mind, is that we do have issues with regards to the meaning of the word project, and that sort of flows between the member agencies and SAM, and obviously understanding what those and defining those things. So I think he just took those as examples because they were things that had just recently come up in the budget process, as opposed to those were two of the
It's
focal
also
points.
scoped to $10,000, so it's not gonna be.
The
Exactly.
strategic plan can identify those as issues that need to be resolved, but outside
Yes.
the scope of the
Right.
strategic plan.
And who knows,
That we
But
can
now,
support.
I always look at strategic plans, especially for government agencies, as a why bother. So I come into this a bit skeptical, so convince me what is going to be the benefit to the agency of doing this, and what's the downside of not doing it. And let me preface that by saying, if we're going to do it, this I think is a good company to do it. I did observe at least the last meeting that Montera had. I went there to see it, and I was impressed by the company, and impressed by the fact that it cost Montera a little over 1/20th of what the Harbor District spent for a very flawed one that's not yet been completed.
Right. Yeah,
If I
But
could,
so convince me that there's value to the agency
Okay.
for doing this.
the line is the process tends to build teamwork, mutual understanding, and clear direction for staff. And I think that summarizes what I've been seeing for SAM. We have a new general manager, we have new staff and newly promoted staff, and I think this gives them clear roadmap and clear lines on where this board wants to take SAM, instead of trying to guess from meeting to meeting to meeting. And I think we really need, it's more efficient, it's cost effective to know where we're going, because it helps to screen out all the other stuff that can come in and all the other distractions.
Focus, resources, both manpower and money.
Well, I do see one value, which is to get some of the stuff written down that seems to have a institutional memory problem, because at this point, other than a couple of the senior staff, I'm basically the institutional memory of this agency.
Uh-oh.
Dude, I'm sitting right here.
I've been here for 3 years longer than you have. I've been here for 3 years longer.
My hearing is still working. 3 whole years. 3 whole years.
So I'd like to make a motion to approve this as
Second.
suggested.
I do want to point out one thing before we vote. I think it's really important for any document that we develop, that we include the sort of, how do you call it? The regulatory framework, the
Yes.
mandates that we operate under, so that people understand the context within
Yes.
which we operate. You know, we pursue these actions because we're accountable to the regional board, or we're
Right.
accountable to
That's a good point.
Fish and Wildlife Service or Coastal Commission or something, but people will understand our decisions if they also understand the context in which we make them. So I think it would be important to have a rundown of all the things that we have to account to in our work.
Well,
So
I think
how,
that's
how,
great.
could I suggest slightly different phrasing for what's, should be the same point, which is that for each element in the final strategic plan, there should be a reference to why do we have to do that?
I think that's not, I think that's anticipating how it will end, and I think starting at the beginning is, I like that.
But I mean, in terms of,
So that sounds to me like that's something you'd like to try to work towards in doing this. I would say if that pans out, that we can hang things on interesting, supporting, obligations that we have that help motivate why we do that, that sounds like a fine thing.
I think-
But I don't think we wanna hang that on everything, because not everything comes from regulatory requirement.
Right,
right,
Some of this
Right.
comes from our own leadership.
Right.
exactly.
And I do think, in talking to Beverly over the past couple months, she has brought up several times, and I think it's just a fabulous idea for Sam and Half Moon Bay and Montero and Grenada. And that is that in first world countries, the thing that separates first world countries from second and third world countries is clean water.
Mhm.
I've been listening to the news today about Rio.
And I think that should be in the first paragraph, because SAM is the agency that keeps our beaches clean.
It's in the name of our website.
Yeah, that's right. But I think we need to repeat that in several places in the future, and I think the start of our strategic plan, because our major goal is clean water.
Mhm.
Clean beaches, clean ocean, clean water, so, but, anyway, so I second it.
So do we?
All in
should-
favor, say aye.
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 I wanted to
Motion carries unanimously.
I wanted to ask for an amendment to that, my standard amendment, which is all deliverables have a minimum font size that's bigger than the spreadsheet they have in here.
I got a suggestion for you.
I don't wanna hear it.
Deliver in PDF, get something with pinch and zoom, and you can have any font size you want.
Yeah, and then you have to
I
scroll
like
left and
that.
right.
Oh,
No,
good lord,
no.
can we please move on?
Yeah.
That's a
Oh,
fun.
God, it is so much work to
That'll be something
scroll.
we can talk about in the process.
Left-right scrolling makes things impossible to read.
I'll get you a better,
Thank
Just
you.
print it in a bigger font.
So,
all right.
Moving on.
I'll
So-
talk to you later.
It didn't work, okay.
It might be me.
Was it big S or little S?
Okay, so,
Try a little less.
we are going to adjourn the special meeting, the public portion, and convene in closed session.
We'll give
Do
a
we have
few
to take a
minutes
motion
for-
to convene in closed
No.
session? Okay.
Do we need to keep the photographer?
No.
No, we're not gonna be
The one
recording.
thing you need to do is you have to announce why we're going to close session, so like if the
Yes.
agenda says the code section number and the
Public
specific
employee-
title.
So we're convening in closed session, item 4A, for the public employee performance evaluation for our general manager.
Per 549.
57.
You don't have to say that. As shown on the agenda.
Well,
Show
that's
me.
true, you can say that.
The proper font size.
So, and if we could have a couple minutes so